Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The 1540 Expedition. An archaeologist from Tucson, Arizona has just discovered what could be the oldest European settlement anywhere in the continental United States. Her name is Denny Seymour, and she believes that she may be rewriting history. Denny discovered hundreds of artifacts linked to the Spanish expedition of 1540. Some of these artifacts include pieces of iron, copper crossbow bolts used by the Spanish, medieval horseshoes and spurs, scraps of chainmail armor, and broken sword fragments. But by far, the coolest artifact she has found at the new archaeological site is an old bronze wall gun. The thing is over 3 feet long and weighs about 40 pounds. She found it sitting on the floor of a structure in the Santa Cruz Valley. But she hasn't told anyone where exactly the archaeological site is. She revealed it's no less than 40 miles from the Coronado National Memorial near the San Pedro River. But because she doesn't want people pillaging the site and ruining its archaeological integrity, she won't give out the exact location. The 1540 expedition was led by the Spanish conquistador Francisco Vázquez de Coronado. He commanded over 2,500 Europeans and indigenous allies through Mexico and into the American Southwest. He was looking for treasure. But after 2 years, all he found were dusty American canyons. This new site may just be a place where Francisco and his troops settled down to stay for a while. It wasn't exactly a town, probably more like a military garrison. Even still, this mysterious desert site could be the very first place Europeans settled, even if only briefly, in what is now the United States. Number 9. The city of Troy. Troy is undoubtedly a city you have heard of before, maybe mentioned in movies you've seen, but what you might not know is that Troy really did exist in the ancient world, only it went by a different name, one not even remotely similar. The ancient city was called Hisarlik, and it was located on the coast of Turkey. Troy became famous about 3,000 years ago when the Greek poet Homer wrote his epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey. These poems described Troy as being besieged by the Greek army for over 10 years, all because the Prince of Troy kidnapped the beautiful Queen of Sparta. You know how it goes. And while this all sounds very plausible, keep in mind that Homer's poem was filled with constant interventions by the gods. It sounded like nothing but fantasy. For that reason, most people never believed that Troy was a real place. Even today, there is no real consensus between historians as to if the Trojan War was ever really fought. The city of Hisarlik was occupied as early as 3500 BC. It's also been destroyed and rebuilt countless times. When the German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann conducted excavations at the site in the early part of the 19th century, he found pieces of treasure. Heinrich claimed the treasure belonged to King Priam from Homer's epic story, but this was back in the 1870s and was later proved false. The truth is that on the site, there have stood at least 10 different cities throughout history. Troy was probably one of them, but it was built over the bones of another city, and when it was destroyed, another city was built on top, until finally Hisarlik was abandoned in the 13th century. Number 8. The Pyramid City of Karal. There are pyramids in South America just as old as the earliest pyramids in Egypt. They are located in Peru, in the ancient city of Karal. In the year 2600 BC, massive pyramid structures were being built all throughout this sacred city on Peru's central coastline. Archaeologists consider Karal to be one of the biggest and most complicated urban centers crafted by an ancient civilization. In the Western Hemisphere, Karal was without a doubt the most impressive city, rivaled only later on by Teotihuacan, far in the north. There are 6 pyramids here, all of them sitting on a desert terrace looking over the immense floodplains below. The biggest pyramid stands 100 feet tall, its base covering an area of roughly 4 football fields. But there is more to it than just pyramids. There are plazas, at least one amphitheater, and residential areas. Archaeologists have even uncovered flutes made from pelican bones, showing that music was very important to whoever lived here. But the biggest mystery surrounding this ancient pyramid city is that it was abandoned abruptly and for no apparent reason. Even today, archaeologists know pretty much nothing about the civilization that called this place home, or why they left so abruptly after thousands of years of habitation. Number 7. Ancient Desert Shrine. In Jordan's eastern desert, Archaeologists found a mysterious shrine estimated to be 9,000 years old. The archaeological site is located on the Al Jafar Basin, excavated by French and local archaeologists in 2021. They found artifacts and treasures, including tons of marine fossils, weird animal figurines, ancient flint tools, and stones carved with weird humanoid features. The altar is part of a large ritual complex. It was also found very close to two old desert kites. Desert kites are animal traps used to capture wild gazelle and deer by Jordanian desert dwellers thousands of years ago. The locals would chase animals into the trap made of stone walls, where they would be funneled into the enclosure and then slaughtered. The fact that the ritual complexes were built so close to animal traps shows just how entwined religion and food was for the Stone Age hunters. The biggest mystery now is trying to figure out exactly what rituals took place at this ancient site. Did the Stone Age people bathe in the blood of their kills? Did they offer the captured animals to strange unnamed gods we've never heard of? Experts have no idea. Number 6. Ancient Ukrainian fortress. The ancient castle city of Bilhorod-Kivysky can be found in modern-day Ukraine. It rose to power as a great and important city in the 10th century, then was destroyed only 300 years later. The only thing left today is a small archaeological ruin near the Ukrainian village of Bilohorodka. Still, this place was once the largest fortress in the region. The story of the castle goes back to the year 980, when the leader of the Kievan Rus, Vladimir I of Kiev, built a castle for himself. It was used as his own residence and to protect the city of Kiev from the fierce nomads of the Great Steppe. As the years went on, the castle became the seat of the local bishop. In the 12th century, it became a fortress city, and in the 13th century, it was ruined. The castle's demise came when the Moguls invaded the region of Kievan Rus. Now here's an interesting piece of history. Up until the Mogul invasion, the land was ruled by a medieval federation of East Slavic tribes. After the Moguls came and slaughtered everyone and destroyed everything, the land was divided into 3 major pieces. These pieces went on to become Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. The fortress city was toppled and forgotten. Number 5. Ancient Pakistan. Pakistan's history goes back over 5,000 years, even before the pyramids were built in Egypt. And yet most people can't name a single archaeological site in the country. This was really a cradle of civilization, home to the Mehrgar culture of 7,000 to 2,500 BC, the Indus Valley culture of between 2,500 to 1,500 BC, and the Gandhara culture that thrived until just 1,000 years ago. The archaeological site of Mehrgar was discovered in 1974 by a group of French archaeologists. Experts say it was home to a highly developed civilization from 8,000 years ago. That makes it one of the oldest permanent settlements in South Asia, and even shows evidence of farming, metallurgy, and the practice of dentistry. Way before the Mesopotamians or the Egyptians were even functioning, people in ancient Pakistan were going to the dentist and farming land. The site is over 30 hectares and was continuously occupied for about 5,600 years. Pakistan is also home to the archaeological site of Raman Deri, unearthed in 1971 by Professor Ahmad Hassan Dani. Archaeologists believe this was the earliest planned urban city. What this means is that around the year 4000 BC, some people sat down and planned the city's layout before putting down the first bricks. Number 4. Surbani Yas Church. On Surbani Yas Island in Abu Dhabi, a very old church was discovered in the early 1990s. Archaeologists uncovered a monastery, a church, and several houses from the 7th century AD. The site proved to be quite intriguing for archaeologists because it showed the first evidence of Christians living in the United Arab Emirates. There wasn't a lot left of these structures, mostly just the ruined foundations, but it was enough for archaeologists to connect the buildings to other ancient churches and monasteries built in the Arabian Gulf over 1,000 years ago. Plus, they found lots of artifacts. Researchers uncovered glass and ceramic objects which linked the inhabitants to other civilizations across the Arabian Gulf. They also found evidence that the people here were keeping cattle, sheep, and goats. In other words, they were farmers and traders and had a pretty good lifestyle going on here. The Christian buildings suggest they were part of the Church of the East. It's quite rare to find a church built in the 6th or 7th century in the UAE because Islam already dominated the region. Researchers say it goes to show just how tolerant and accepting the early Islamic leaders were. But as you can tell by the absolute destruction of this whole archaeological site, that tolerance did not last forever. Number 3. Ancient French city. Excavations done by experts with the University of Toulouse-Jean Jaurès in France have revealed a mysterious fortified settlement. This settlement may represent a lost Celtic capital city from the Bronze Age. Archaeologists have uncovered jewelry, pieces of a chariot, and tons of weapons. They've also found farming tools and extremely valuable items, all buried on the settlement grounds. The items were hidden beneath the earth around the year 800 BC, probably as part of a religious ceremony. But let's back things up a bit. The mysterious hill fort was found in Ganat in central France. Excavations began in 2017, with archaeologists slowly realizing this was a major site. It was likely a thriving hub of Celtic activity 2,800 years ago. There was farming here, manufacturing of textiles and ceramics, and skilled metalworking. The researchers also discovered plenty of signs of wealth. Chariots, harnesses decorated with jewels, glass beads imported from Italy, and axe blades fashioned in England. But here's something you might not know. There are 327 hill forts from the Bronze Age scattered throughout France. This newest one has yielded the largest assortment of treasure. Only a handful of other forts have given up any artifacts at all. It now looks like this may have been the capital of the Celts living in France before it was ever France. The other hill forts were just secondary settlements. Number 2. The Palace Beneath the Forbidden City. China's Forbidden City has housed 24 Chinese emperors throughout history. And while many people have heard of the Great Forbidden City in Beijing, most haven't heard of what's hiding underneath it. You see, the Forbidden City was built over the bones of an even more ancient palace from the Yuan dynasty. The original palace was built by none other than Kublai Khan, descendant of Genghis Khan. For at least the last century, archaeologists have wondered where the ruins of the old palace could be. They knew the palace was somewhere beneath the ground of the Forbidden City, but could never figure out where. It wasn't until 2016 when experts from the Palace Museum announced the discovery of foundations from the 13th century. They were found right in the center of the Forbidden City, dating to the last days of the Mongol Khans. This is fascinating because it proves that roughly 2 centuries before the Forbidden City was constructed in the early 1400s, Kublai Khan had his own palace standing in its place. That palace was torn down, and the Forbidden City that came to be the seat of emperors for 600 years was built directly on top of it. Number 1. The City of Ur. The ruins of Ur in Iraq are some of the most important in the world. Ur was a city in ancient Mesopotamia, ruled over by the Sumerians. It has close links to the Bible. Abraham is said to have been born here, and it is home to the largest ziggurat-style pyramid still standing. But what's really amazing is that the city goes back to the very beginning of human civilization, starting as a small village around the year 5000 BC. It was inhabited for at least 1200 years before establishing itself as a city. The city was excavated in 1922 by the archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley. He discovered a massive grave complex, a series of royal tombs, and evidence of the Great Flood described in the Bible. Much like many ancient cities, Ur was occupied by several different civilizations. Ur became the seat for the hero kings of the Akkadian Empire from between 2334 and 2279 BC. Sargon the Great claimed to be born from a priestess and a god, and proclaimed the holy ruler of all Mesopotamia. In its final days, Ur was part of Old Babylonia. It was considered the center of learning and culture in all the ancient world. People traveled here from distant lands to study and worship the many gods of their time at Ur's dozens of temples. The city was even inhabited into the Achaemenid period until 330 BC. But overuse of the land, massive immigration from other parts of Mesopotamia, and climate change resulted in the city's desertion. It was covered in sand and not seen again until 1625. Thanks for watching! Which of these mysterious archaeological sites would you love to explore? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time for more awesome videos. Bye!